Now that you have added some questions and resources to your test, it is time to edit those items or add custom questions that you create from scratch. To create a new item, you will click the plus symbol where you want the item to be added. You will get a screen with some pull-down menus and an editing space. The top pull-down menu lets you select the question type. There are 4 options. Selected response is the default and refers to multiple choice or multiple response type items, which are the most common types used on scanner-based tests. Constructed response items include short answer and essay items. These items must be scored by the instructor administering the test. Numerical response items provide a grid in which students answer by bubbling numbers, decimals, and/or plus negative symbols. Correct answers will be computer graded based on the correct answer provided. Resource items are not graded but can be inserted into a test to provide additional instructions or a resource that students must use to answer the question, such as a reading passage, a chart, graph, or an image. Resources typically apply to multiple questions, making up certain sections of the test. For all 3 of the item types that students must provide an answer for, you should specify the standards, complexity, and item weight of the question so that the data collected from the test will be as useful as possible. The standards are associated with the course you selected for the test. If you click the purple boxes, the list of standards from which you can choose from will open up. If your test is associated with more than one course, you can switch between courses. You can associate up to 2 standards, 1 primary and 1 secondary for each question. The pull-down for complexity is based off of Webb's depth of knowledge, which measures on a scale of 1 to 3. You can also adjust the weight of the questions on a test. The default weight is 1. If you change the weight of a question to 0, you will be able to analyze the student response data, but that question will not be counted towards student scores. We will discuss scoring in more depth when we go over the different question types. Let's first look at the selected response item type. When selected, you have 2 radio buttons that appear, allowing you to select between multiple choice or multiple response. Multiple choice has 1 correct answer. Multiple response has more than 1 correct answer. And students will have to bubble all correct answers to receive credit. If you choose to use multiple response, it is a good idea to build the phrase, "bubble all that apply," at the end of the question prompt. Below the radio buttons is a workspace for drafting or editing your question. There is an HTML editor for you to use. You can type, change the font, change spacing, insert tables, insert images, add bullets or numbering, indent lines, and adjust the alignment in this space. It is important to note that cutting and pasting images into this space is not recommended. It is best if you have the picture you're using saved as an image on your computer and use the image icon to upload your image. Below the editing section is the space where you type in the student answer choices. This section is also tied to the HTML editor, so you can format your work or insert images into the responses. You need to make sure that you click the radio button next to the correct answer or answers if you are using multiple selection. You can also use the arrows to rearrange answer choices or the red X to remove answer choices. When finished editing, make sure to save your work by clicking on the Save button. We will now look at editing a numeric response question type. You can click on the blue plus button to add a new question and select numeric response as the question type. When you select numeric response, the radio buttons are replaced with settings that allow you to select the type of grid you want to have printed on the student answer sheet. You can choose between a fixed decimal or a floating decimal. If you select fixed, you will need to select the number of digits before the decimal or after the decimal. If you select floating, you need to select the number of digit columns. A decimal will become a bubble choice at the top of the column. You also have the option of allowing negative values. If you select this, a column will be added to the beginning of the grid containing a plus or minus for the students to bubble. You will use the same HTML editor to type in the question and any associated images. In the lower half of the editor is where you will type in your answer. Be sure to use only numbers and make sure the decimal falls in the correct spot. Include a plus or minus sign if you are requiring students to enter negative numbers. When finished editing, be sure to save the work by clicking on the Save button. We will next add a constructed response item to the test. When you click Constructed Response, a scoring range is added to the question information. To better understand how the test is scored, you need to take into consideration the raw points associated with each question. For selected response and numerical response, the weight you give a question is equal to the raw points for that question. For constructed response items, the raw points result from multiplying the weight times the student's score. Therefore, if you give a constructed response with a weight of 1, and students can score on a scale of 0 to 4, students can earn more raw points than the weight of the question. This creates a situation where constructed response items carry a higher weight for student scores. If you want to make the selected or numeric response questions equal in weight to constructed response, you need to make those questions the same weight as the maximum range of the constructed response questions. You will also get a box to check for teacher graded. If you do not select this box, the student answer document will provide a box for the student to write the answer in. You can select how many rows and how wide you want the box to appear. You can also add lines to the recording space. When choosing this option, the student responses will be scanned and the teacher will have to enter the student score in Eduphoria. If you select this box, the other options become grayed out. A section labeled Teacher Use Only will appear on the student answer document. Students will have to record their answer on the test booklet or a separate sheet of paper. The teacher will then be able to enter the student score on the bubble sheet, and that score will be available upon scanning. You will use the same HTML editor to type in the question and any associated images. In the lower half of the editor is where you will type the scoring criteria for the question. When finished editing, be sure to save the work by clicking on the Save button. This concludes Module 3. In Module 4, we will focus on formatting the test and answer documents so that they are ready for student use.